What up, y'all? This is Tracy from Squish, and today we're gonna be talking about Renfield. Okay, it feels like I have been waiting for this movie forever. I remember first seeing pics drop of Nicolas Cage's Dracula and being like, what the heck, oh my god, I can't wait. But you've seen the movie, and now we're gonna break it down. We're gonna talk about it all because this was a fun one to watch, and it has just hit streaming services, so what's a better time to talk about Renfield? Before we get into all the details of this breakdown and review, this is Nerd Squish, where we take everything spooky and we take everything nerdy and we squish it all together. So if you like universal monsters, horror movies, and pop culture, definitely hit that subscribe button so you can see more videos from us in the future. So this movie focuses on Renfield, who is Dracula's minion, his servant, if you will, and his journey to break free from his boss and live his own life. Here are the things that I really liked about the movie. There are some sequences in the beginning of the movie that put Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult directly into the 1931 Dracula classic, and this is amazing. Flawless. Oh my god, like I was in the theater and like I screamed when this happened because I was so excited. So they swap out Lugosi for Cage and Fry for Hoult, and they establish the relationship between these two characters for maybe people that aren't familiar with the original movie. But at the same time, it was a great homage for the fans of these classic films. And it was executed so perfectly. I mean, they matched that grainy old Hollywood feel perfectly. That for a second, I'm like, whoa, what year was this filmed? It was amazing. I think it goes without saying, but Nicolas Cage as Dracula is the best part of this movie. Cage was born to play this character. And it was a New Orleans set Dracula, which is just too perfect considering Nicolas Cage's deep connections with the city. If you're not familiar, Nicolas Cage actually owned and lived at the LaLaurie Mansion. That's right, the creepy house of torture, formerly owned by Madame Delphine LaLaurie, which you may know from American Horror Story Coven. But that's not where Nicolas Cage's obsession with the city and connections with the city end. Cage has also purchased a plot in the St. Louis Cemetery No. 1, which also happens to be the resting place of the voodoo queen Marie Laveau. So the weirdest part about this is not the fact that Nicolas Cage, who to my knowledge is in good health, has a plot in a world-famous cemetery, but the fact of what it looks like. It's a pyramid. It's a giant pyramid amongst like normal old New Orleans style graves. The mystery and the obsession with Nicolas Cage's tomb goes so far that they actually have a local New Orleans band called The Tomb of Nick Cage. And I know, when those pictures dropped of Nicolas Cage, everybody had one of two reactions. They were either like, WTF, or yes, this is amazing, because the dude is just, he's serious enough to do it, but also like completely off the rails bonkers to do it. And as you know, he has practice of being a vampire in a movie before. I'm a vampire! Another thing that really works for this movie is that stylistically, it's gorgeous. The vibrant New Orleans setting is everything. I mean, I knew when I saw the trailer, like, this is going to be a beautiful movie, and it really, really was. From the creepy voodoo overlay at Mulat's to Dracula's blood bag throne, it was just absolute perfection. Everything's super fascinating to watch, but I feel like there's also like details that you can watch this movie again and again and appreciate new props and sets that you really wouldn't have like picked up on the first time you watched it. One of the biggest sets that is obviously something that as a New Orleanian stuck out to me is Charity Hospital. The production designer said that he wanted to do a new and modern take on Dracula's castle, right? Coincidentally, the famous New Orleans hospital Charity kind of mimics Dracula's castle. I mean, you gotta use your imagination a little bit, but it's there. And I mean, what better like lair for Dracula to have than a place that has seen so much death and destruction? If you don't know, Charity Hospital was all over the place in the news for Hurricane Katrina because of everything that went down there during the storm. But I think Dracula's throne was honestly the set piece that stuck out the most to me. And I know what you're thinking, Tracy. It's a throne made of blood bags. That's beautiful to you, and yes, it is. They have a light that shines through the translucent blood bags, and it just makes this red light cascade all over all of Drac's like lair, and it set a mood that was perfect for this film and for this character. So the number one thing that like, you know, it was like, okay, how is this gonna work? This comedy and this horror. It was perfect. It was blended beautifully. The savagery of the practical effects and gore mixed with the comedy was amazing. I mean, some of the gore was literally, like, not only was it done well, but it was so over the top that it was perfect for a horror comedy. There's literally one scene where a guy gets kicked. I'm pretty sure, like, blood comes out of his mouth, and he also poops himself at the same time. It was wild. It was beautiful. I kind of loved it. The movie definitely doesn't take itself seriously, which is exactly what it needed to do for a modern take on this classic character. We have seen Dracula time and time again, and we even have kind of seen him in this retrospect of kind of comedic and almost silly at times, and it's usually pretty fun, but everything with this movie and the actors and the people that made it possible, it was a perfect non-serious Dracula that was still kind of scary. In my last video about Renfield, I predicted that this movie was going to be a combination of The Mummy, Invincible, and What We Do in the Shadows, and honestly, I feel like that was pretty spot on. The only thing that I would add to that is it gave me Dylan Dog vibes, and I think a lot of that was like the New Orleans setting and the style of comedy. I mean, obviously it was better than Dylan Dog because that's one movie I really wanted to like, but you know, they weren't giving me a lot to work with. And now, of course, we gotta talk about the things that didn't work in the film. And really, I only have two complaints. The first one being the portrayal of Renfield. Now, this is no hate to Nicholas Hoult. I think this was a really fun and interesting take on the character, especially putting the character in modern day of doing this for years and decades and what that would do to this particular character. And Nicholas Hoult only seems to be getting better every single role I see him in. My real problem with the portrayal of Renfield in this movie is the superhero aspect. It was weird. I just don't understand why they went in that direction. I get it, like everything's a superhero now. Everything is a superhero. And I was like, let's pump the brakes on that a little bit. And maybe I'm only saying this because I'm so used to Dwight Frye's like portrayal of this character being like psychotic and murderous. And then we just flip to a rather well-adjusted individual with the strength of Superman? What? I find it really hard to believe that Dracula, no matter the state that he was in, would give his minion superpowers that would be basically the same as his or kind of even stronger, again, if he's in this, like, rundown state. Like, I just don't think that would be a thing that Dracula would do, because clearly he doesn't have the upper hand in that position. And my second complaint about this movie is the subplot of Rebecca the cop versus the New Orleans mob family. I just didn't care. I'm here for Dracula, I'm here for Renfield, and I'm here for their shenanigans, okay? The only part of this subplot that was fun to watch is Ben Schwartz, because Ben Schwartz, I mean, he's amazing and hilarious. But the whole thing, I mean, I get it. I get that somewhere in there it did tie in, but like, I just didn't care about this like forced thing with caring about her and the father and I was like, whatever. It felt random and put together at the last moment, which to my knowledge, I'm pretty sure that is what happened. I did hear from a friend that actually worked on the film that in the middle of filming, there was a rewrite, so we could probably blame that for all the bad parts of this film. And this isn't necessarily like a bad thing, but just like a complaint. But the day the movie came out, Nicholas Hoult released this video on social media. So after the big showdown at Mulat's, Renfield walks out and breaks into this giant dance scene in the French Quarter to Jackie Wilson's Your Love Keeps Taking Me Higher and Higher. And it is amazing. It's so fun. It's beautiful. It represents both of the city very well, as well as just like Renfield's like, all right, I'm gonna get out of this thing with my boss. Like, I'm doing it. And I don't understand why it was cut. All the things that you added to this movie, like with the subplot, with Rebecca, and you could have had this dance scene, that was more important. I'm just putting it out there. Like, for every time that someone yelled, "Shut up, Kyle," in the movie, they could have just taken that out and put this scene back in. I'm just saying. I do have to nerd out for a second and let y'all know that this movie actually solved two great New Orleans mysteries. The first one being why New Orleans has so many boil water advisories. For those that aren't familiar, a boil water advisory is put out by the Sewage and Water Board for residents to boil tap water before drinking it for, I don't know, there's always some reason, but the thing is, this happens constantly in New Orleans. I feel like every other week, boil water advisory, boil water advisory, boil water advisory. Oh, y'all thought it was okay to drink the water? Boil water advisory. But now, because of this movie, we know why. And I'm gonna put a little spoiler warning right here because this has to do with the end of the movie. So after the final fight, Renfield and Rebecca defeat Dracula and they straight up cube him and like cut him up in all these pieces and they put him in the sewer. So next time New Orleans gets a boil water advisory, it's because Drac's down there in the water trying to put himself back together and like, you know, do what Drac does. But the more important New Orleans mystery that we solved is we now know who put the Christmas tree up at Charity Hospital. So to kind of break this down for those that don't know, as I mentioned before, the lair for Dracula and Renfield is Charity Hospital. Charity is a big hospital in New Orleans that's been abandoned since 2005 when Katrina hit and flooded the basement, shutting down the hospital and trapping roughly 360 patients, as well as 1,200 staff members inside. Charity Hospital is just still sitting there, abandoned, left as it was back in 2005. There was rumors to reopen, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Like most things in New Orleans, nothing happened. It lays rotting and disgusting like most things in the city. But then, I think it was back in 2015, somebody posted on social media that they were passing by the hospital and they saw something in the window, and it was a Christmas tree lit up in the window of the abandoned Charity Hospital. This has been something that's both terrified and comforted New Orleans residents. I mean, who would be lighting up a Christmas tree in a rundown hospital? You know, many people always said, oh, well, maybe it's the ghost of the people that unfortunately passed there, whether it was before Katrina or after. But now we know the truth. Dracula was feeling in the spirit, you know, he was feeling that Christmas eggnog, you know what I'm saying? And he was like, Renfield, go put up a tree. I'm feeling saucy. Let's go. I want the spirit in here. So now we know. Now the big question is, do I still think that Renfield could save the Dark Universe? No, unfortunately, it will not save the Dark Universe. Now, I'm not saying that because I didn't like the film. I really, really enjoyed this movie. However, it seems these days that most things don't become like a franchise or get sequels and all these things unless an obscene amount of money gets dropped on these projects while they're in the theaters. And unfortunately, Renfield, with critics and everything, it didn't do well. It didn't make the money that was probably put into it, so I really feel like this is gonna be a one and done. Which, this is a big letdown for me because I would love to see the rest of the Universal monsters in this universe. It was just so fun, and I have had a blast, like, thinking about all the ways that you would see the Wolfman, Frankenstein, and the Invisible Man in this world. Now, that's not to say that we won't ever see Nicolas Cage as Dracula again. After all, in interviews, he has said that he would love to revisit this character and have a movie where it's just about his Dracula, and I am for that. And honestly, I feel like with as many huge Nicolas Cage fans that there are, this will happen. You know, it won't be on the scale that this movie was. It'll probably be very low budget and, even sillier than this one, but I'm for it, and take my money. Take my money. I will help fund this. So all in all, this movie was exactly what I thought it was going to be. I expected a hilarious, over-the-top, gory ride, and that's exactly what I got. So to me, I feel like if you're, a fan of Nicolas Cage, if you're a fan of Dracula, if you're a fan of horror comedies, you're going to love this movie. That being said, I know there's a lot of people that take these characters very seriously and don't want to see them in this manner. You'll probably hate this. But if you're looking for a fun time with a classic monster, this is it. You can't get much better than this. Let me know in the comments down below, what did you think of this movie? Did you think it was a fun horror comedy, or did you completely hate Nicolas Cage as Dracula? Let me know. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can see more videos from us in the future. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you nerds later! Do I get superpowers now?